G'day everyone, welcome here to a very special moment where everyone has just spontaneously realised we're on the telly and we are here for the first pub test of the 2025 federal election. Thank you very much. We are in the seat of Gilmore. Yes, we are right in the heart of the tightest electorate in the country. 373 votes was how it was all decided. This time last election, and in this room tonight we have viewers of the program, people who have come along to ask questions of two of the main candidates. Andrew Constance, who is here for the Liberal Party and a local independent, is going to be here as well. We will introduce both of them to you in greater detail in a moment or two's time. But first, just a little observation of the day's news. Now, I want to talk about both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader today, and where the government is trying to take the federal election to try to change the subject from the subject that would see them lose the election. Obviously, Anthony Albanese, after $8.5 billion of extra money when it comes to Medicare, was out and about pretending that Peter Dutton didn't make exactly the same promise yesterday.
Australians can't afford the Medicare bill that Peter Dutton will make them pay. I know that yesterday he had a bit of a change of heart, but no one believes a bloke who's been in office for such a long period of time. And before the time that he became the Health Minister, Tony Abbott promised no cuts to health.
Perfect sense to me. Meantime, the opposition leader, well, he was whacking away at the bloke who made the same promise that he did yesterday.
The first-term opposition hasn't won since 1931. Now, this is the worst government since 1931, and Anthony Albanese is the worst Prime Minister since 1931, and completely out of his depth. I think we should be very honest about that, and I think the Australian public has understood that.
Now, while the current debate, and much of the media debate, is to have a conversation about medicine, Medicare, hospitals, who's going to pay for it, it doesn't take a genius to work out what is the number one issue. Every poll, every time we've gone out with a microphone, over and over, what is it? Roll the tape.
The cost of living.
Cost of living.
Cost of living.
Cost of living.
Cost of living. The cost of living's crazy.
You know if you're a regular viewer of the program. If not, well, I care a lot about the idea that 3 years into any government, but particularly a government that, remember, made a promise. This was the Prime Minister's promise from his Twitter feed. I did not make this up. This is not some far right-wing AI conspiracy, but that's the promise, that a Labor government would lower the cost of living. Does anyone have the sense that things have lowered in the past 3 years? Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so, OK? Also, 3 million people in Australia are this close to homelessness. A lot of different reasons, but it means the cost of basics. And we have shown you this as we're the type of show that counts the grains of sand on the beach as opposed to people just walking by. We've shown you the stories. We showed you the Senate inquiries. We've spoken to the people from Food Bank that it is 3.4 million Australians who don't know where their food is going to come from each and every week. So the joint has gone backwards. Oh, global factors. Well, these were all the same global factors 3 years ago, but a promise was clearly not kept. So you can understand why the Prime Minister wants to change the subject. Wants to change the subject to one that is traditionally stronger for centre-left governments, obviously for the Labor Party, and all the way down to holding up the props. And I'm sure there's no one on the internet who will start putting other things in his hand on the internet over the next little while. But you can see here that also, every time we go and have a look at the polling, this was a Morgan poll. Morgan poll was the strongest poll for the Labor Party at the moment, by the way. Well, it shows number one issue, 57% of people say that it is about keeping the cost of living down. All right, this is out of 100 at any one time. Improving health services, second best issue. Then it's down to crime, then it's down to climate change. So you can see why they're trying to drag the conversation into a certain direction. Today, freshwater poll, again, the issues, have a look at the screens here about the issues and the order in which people care about them. You can see cost of living by a country mile. On this one, though, healthcare not as high, but it seems to be the strongest of the areas for the government to try to change the conversation, to try to have a multi-week debate between now and then that's what they want the election to be about. Because if you hold them account to the promise they made 3 years ago, they're going to get the arse. That's the truth of what is most likely to happen. And when we actually have a look at, again, some of the deeper data inside the polling that was around today, in that freshwater poll in the Financial Review, check out the big screens or watch it at home. that when it comes to the economy, 41% of people back in the Libs at the moment, 25% the ALP, a significant number of people undecided. But as always, in that, split it in 50-50, clearly the Libs get over 50%. When it comes to the issues in and around the cost of living, a little closer, but still, the Libs up 36 to 26, close to 40% of people still up and about. And even then, if you start to split that, well, then you might not even start getting towards 50-50 in some areas. But of course, health, same issues, same polls. The same polls that show 51-49, 48-52, they show here that healthcare is an advantage, but not a massive one for the Labor Party. They are hoping if we can have a week-long conversation about it, then we're all somehow distracted from the past 3 years and we start to go where we're going to go. Further to that point, in the poll that I showed you last night when we were in Bateman's Bay, just up the road, and believe me, locations count, locations matter. When we're up the road in Bateman's Bay, there was that polling which showed a giant blowout for the Labor Party's vote and starting to head towards the local toot. But it shows here, when it comes to economic management, again, 41% in favour of the coalition, just 24% in favour of Labor. You do the same when it comes to keeping cost of living low. Significant number of people undecided still, about a quarter, but the Liberals much closer to 50% than Labor. When it comes to hospitals, I make the same point for the 900th time, but it's important to drive it home. Why are we talking about hospitals? Because they matter? Sure. But why does the government want you to talk about hospitals? Because they know it plays better for them in an election. They want the Jedi mind trick to be, this is not the cost of living crisis that we promised we would fix. And they expect you to change your mind. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be the case because every time we see a poll, it tells the same story. And these polls, they exist, everything from the Turnbull Times in The Guardian through to The Australian. They pop up in the Financial Review, all the different TV stations have got their polls and they say the same thing over and over again. Now, again, can polls be wrong? Yes. Are the bookies more likely to be right? Yes. But what do they say? That there's going to be a change of government. That's the bookies. As for the Albanese's performance and where he sits in these polls, 56% of people, remember when the rate cut was supposed to change everything? 56% of people say that the Prime Minister's doing a poor or very poor job compared to Dutton, where he's 40% at poor or very poor.